Thank you for this opportunity to start my role a little earlier than expected. It is exciting. I'll be talking a little bit about what we are doing with the registry and what we are doing in general in QPPR as it relates to the BOLD program. So it's my pleasure to be here. So we are essentially working on 4 big areas. We are helping transform the specialty to meet that new vision that we have envisioned for ourselves. We are going to help prepare ourselves to reach those goals. We're going to be more dynamically engaging the members. And as a result, or together, we're going to be enhancing the strength of this organization as the primary force behind realizing that vision. So the registry essentially will be a vehicle through which we can drive the collection of data and use the data to inform our research, the research that will essentially fuel this engine. Then we are also going to use that same data to inform us for reimbursement and contract discussions that the members can use in their own practices and institutions, as well as different institutions can use for benchmarking and quality reporting and comparing specialty to specialty, institution to institution, etc. It's not necessarily comparative effectiveness as much as elevating the quality as we benchmark each other as to best practices. The registry will also allow us to engage with each other in a consistent way. So we are not just talking in platitudes or subjectively, but we are actually using data to then learn from each other, engage each other's discussions, and then be a value driver for the membership. So this triangle, this pyramid, can be upside down, sideways, or the right way up, because there is no telling whether the value of the registry, who it appeals to the most. The first and foremost is keeping the patients in mind, so we can enhance our ability to deliver better care for our patients using the registry. We can help individual members, like I alluded to earlier, to use the data that the registry will help collect and analyze. And we can also enhance the value of the specialty. The specialty can use the data in the registry as a whole to understand its value and then prove its value. The academy will then be the driver of this whole engine again. It can influence not only practices, but it can influence policy and legislation as well. So this is it'll stir the whole process in a way. This timeline has actually been accelerated a little bit. So as you can see there, we are supposed to be in phase 1, but phase 1 is already well underway. We are in the beginning of phase 2 now, because the contract with the new vendor was about 2 months ahead of schedule. And so we are in the process of discussing with some pilot sites already, and so that we can sign them up as early adopters for ischemic stroke and low back pain pilots. Those are the 2 pilots that are currently underway. We'll continue to refine and build out the registry as we go forward. And we are very fortunate that there have been some really highly energized champions at these institutions that are early adopters that we're engaging with already, and we're very, very excited. So to talk about a game plan and to borrow the analogy, I feel like a third base coach. I feel like I'm a third base coach kind of waving the runner into home plate. And the reason I'm using that analogy is very exciting because we're about to score a run, but there is a chance that that runner might be thrown out in home plate. So that it's scary, and that risk is something that we are taking. And if it doesn't engender that fear, it's probably not worth taking that risk, because we're fully aware of the risk that we are taking of going ahead with this registry. I feel like that analogy captures the excitement also, because we are potentially scoring a winning run. as we go forward, we're going to continue to scale this pilot and go beyond these 2 pilots into other topic areas and potentially expand it from a small group of really well-intentioned early adopters to bigger, larger programs, and not just institutions, but individual members as well, which was kind of the model that we were using previously. So as you can see in this slide set, we are going to start with low back pain and ischemic stroke, and then move on to the rehabilitation care continuum, other areas in musculoskeletal medicine, pediatric rehab, and so on, once again following the same 4 pillars of the BOLD initiative. A little bit into the details if you are a person that would like those details, and I'll go through these as fast or as slow as you would like me to. The low back pain details, the data elements that we are going to be collecting are the following. We're going to have demographic information, we're going to have some other medical characteristics and history, and we're going to certainly collect some very broad areas of treatments, and then collect some very important and validated outcome measures, particularly the ones that matter the most. I mean, clearly, as you dive into this, you'll have a lot more level of detail and nuance in outcome measures, but these are, based on our research, very important, fundamentally important priorities in terms of outcomes. And we're going to focus on that for sure. The inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria of the low back pain pilot are up there, and our follow-up protocol will definitely be measuring these outcomes and collecting data at 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and so on. Then the details of the stroke pilot, and again, if you'd like me to slow down, let me know, are here in front of you, and then these are the inclusion and exclusion criteria and the follow-up protocol for the ischemic stroke pilot. If you'd like more information and that brief overview was not sufficient, you're welcome to go and try out the dashboard demos that are available in the Learning Center on Thursday, which is today at 4 o'clock, or tomorrow at 9:30, or Saturday at 9:30. And there's also the registry booth in the exhibit hall that's open during normal exhibit hours. In addition, the reason why I am pinch hitting for Michael Hatzakis, who is a lot more dynamic and much taller gentleman than I am, is happening concurrently. So obviously, if you're here, I can't ask you to go and attend that, but you chose well. If you want updates and you're not here and you're listening to this on rewind, my apologies, but you are still welcome to sign up to the Registry Insider and get email bullets in your inbox. And I'll be talking a little bit about advocacy as I'm continuing the baseball analogy here and pinch hitting again. So I'm not a coach now, I'm here, I'm a batter. So broad items that we are focusing on in terms of advocacy and the scope of practice. Many of you have heard a lot of news in this domain, and there's still plenty of informational posters and other items that you can see all over the annual assembly this time. The definition of rehab physician has been a hot button topic lately. We are really deep into reimbursement advocacy, and we have had some real wins, and as I'll tell you in a moment. And we are also focusing a spotlight on physiatrist burnout and administrative burden. We continue to focus on this, but we're certainly putting a spotlight on the burnout a little bit more. So as you saw here, we put a stake in the ground and said, we're going to define the role of the rehabilitation physician and the importance of a physiatrist being the medical director in inpatient rehab. And then we are also focusing on the scope of practice issues with state level, where if you can see there, the Academy, in collaboration with the Medical Association of Alabama, we opposed direct access to PT in Alabama, and those are the details of the advocacy activities that we have taken forth in that area. And we're also, here's the position statement snapshot. And we are also going to be talking about the bullet points. The main bullet points from the position statement are as follows. The best practice for treating patients in IRFs, and I'm going to read off the slide, Michelle, I apologize, because I have to get this right. The best practice for treating patients in IRFs calls for a director of rehabilitation and the designated rehabilitation physician to be a physiatrist. That was really the take-home point number one. And the take-home point number two was the physiatrist specialized training makes the PM&R physician the most qualified specialist to lead a team of medical specialists and therapists to be involved in the patient's rehabilitative care. So these were some real hard, important points that we emphasized and put forth in the position statement. This is where the team went out to bat. Once again, the baseball analogy comes up here. At the CMS offices. This was earlier this year in March. And those activities led to a tremendous surge of engagement with the membership, as you can see here. A high water mark of 1,100 members or more that wrote to CMS as a part of this advocacy effort. 40 organizations signed on with the stakeholder letter. 6 different academy leaders were on this ad hoc work group, and we sent strongly worded letter to the CMS, had 2 meetings with the CMS, 1 meeting with the OMB, and then 2 meetings with other staffers on the Hill. We had leadership calls with stakeholder organizations such as the AMRPA, AAN, Encompass, Kindred Select, AHA, ACRM, as well as UDS. And these were the other organizations that on the right side that you saw, that you see there. That's not meant to be readable, but just gives you an overview of how many organizations signed on to us, with us. And you might be seeing these little posters that look like snakes on your way to the sessions. Essentially, it charts out the path that we have taken in this course, in this advocacy effort to define the rehabilitation physician. And as a next step, as you may have heard, the effort with the CMS was not quite a win, and we are not taking it as a loss either, because essentially it reinvigorated our efforts to continue in this phase. And the next phase in this area essentially is that there's a new inpatient rehabilitation work group that has been established to focus on the future evolution of this whole advocacy effort and how it impacts the patients, the industry, and the physiatrists in general. We hope to reach consensus on the short and long-term goals and to establish firm guidelines so we can guide us forward in this space going forward. And there is the other snake that that you'll be seeing. I don't know if the snake is the right way to describe it. That's the first thing that came to my head when I saw the slide. It's like these are slithering snakes going forward, and that's the path it took. And we are actively engaged in reimbursement advocacy, and we have had a very clear win in this path. And we continue to work on E&M coding issues, and there's going to be a pause and probably a redefinition of the proposed changes, and the new changes will not take effect until a couple of years from now. We successfully avoided the collapsing of the E&M codes into 3, which would have adversely affected our RVUs. And we're going to now pivot towards educating members about the new coding and documentation requirements once we have a better understanding of where they finally land with their proposed changes. And a big win for us, as I alluded to earlier, is Dr. Grierson, I forget how do you say it, but he is on the RUC committee and a big influence in actively engaging with the group and batting for the physiatrists and representing the field, and especially with challenges associated with medically complex patients. So he's making a huge impact, and big kudos to the RPRC, Dr. Grierson, and the Academy in getting us a seat at the table and having a big voice heard at the table as well. Physician burnout. We are going to be focusing on this quite a bit. As you can see in that little graphic, the 2018 Medscape physician burnout statistics, we were 8 out of 30 in specialty, and in the 2019 report, we were number 3. So the burnout rate of physiatrists has been getting worse, and we are alarmed, concerned, and we definitely want to that's why we're putting a spotlight on it. And you'll hear a lot more about all the different steps we are taking in this area going forward. But one of the big reasons we think for the burnout is the denials, and we're working hard at trying to identify factors and reducing the denial rate, educating members, educating the payers, and also working with our quality team to better understand this process so we can have a firm footing to stand on. We're also trying to address the burdensome prior authorization process, and our HP&L committee, which is an action there on the steps of the Hill, are continuing to work on this with educating the staff, the congressional people, as well as dealing with the payers and CMS directly. So activities are going on, and we'll continue to put a laser light on that.